Hi, this is a review of the order trading system activity for July the 28th, 2021. We had 5 trades on that day, 4 were buy, 1 was a short sell. First trade was EOG. That's EOG Resources Incorporated. It tripped at 11:47:11 a.m. at a price of 73.09. It was a buy. It closed the day at 73.30 at 0.78%, so that's a positive. And we'll look at the indicators. OBV came up a bit but moved sideways volume-wise, and then in the afternoon it actually came down. MACD came up, dropped a little bit for that period that correlates to OBV, obviously, coming down, but you could see in the afternoon recovered, so basically it's mimicking MACD and OBV have the same pattern. DI is actually showing fairly good positive movement. Had a good jump mid-afternoon, and you can see late afternoon close, and it's moving up. Bollinger Band actually looks like a consistent move up, so the stock technically, or not technically, was moving up. Next trade is NAKD. Naked Brand Group Limited, tripped at 12:35:15 p.m. at a price of 54 cents. It closed the day at 54.42, up 4.65%, and it's down a little bit early morning. But again, it is above its tripping price. Some people may say, well, that's not very much, but this is a penny stock, and actually half a cent rise is actually good for a penny stock. So let's go and OBV, morning, early afternoon, mid-afternoon, it was up and then came back a little bit in the afternoon, mid-afternoon. MACD up. You can see it looked like it jumped up here in late afternoon also, so then it came down in late afternoon closing. DI shows up. This point here where the other points were showing a drop a bit, it's also showing DI. It came down here and had a drop in the early mid-afternoon. It was dropping down a bit, but you can see it recovered and came back up. In Bollinger Band, pretty much a consistent rise upwards. You can see this drop here, but you can see it's actually not drastic. In fact, the two extremes reduced actually quite a bit, which means it wasn't actually movement itself, so it basically was not really moving too much drastically from its center line. And in the afternoon, the stock was moving positive. Next trade was AZN. That's AstraZeneca PLC, tripped at 12:45 p.m. at a price of 57.20. It was a short sell. It closed the day at 56.81, down 1.13%, but you can see it's actually recovering early morning here. So, interesting, but that still is a positive. And should see if the stock is going to show negative trending. OBV pretty much nice steady decline itself. Just shows that the stock volume-wise was moving down. MACD shows a fairly consistent downward trend, so MACD looks to be moving down. OBV looks to be more negative than positive, which is also an indication point. And you can see when it was negative, it was fairly strongly negative. And you can see at the end of the day, it was actually dropping quite heavily also, which the other indicators are showing. And Bollinger Band, it just shows a steady decline. That stock definitely was moving negative. GEVO. That's GEVO Incorporated, tripped at 2:35:07 p.m. at a price of 6.30, and that was a buy, obviously. It closed the day at 6.26, up 8.12%, and early morning it's up 3.51%, so the stock's actually not doing too bad, but it didn't close above its tripping, so let's see, 2:35. Yeah, 2:35. Up, 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 up. You see right here, it came down this like late afternoon. It came down, but you see, it was a good period here, probably a good hour time where it was above its tripping price multiple times during that hour. So that's to me is a positive. Check to see if the stock itself is okay. OBV somewhat moving positive. So the end of the day here, where it looked like it coming down, volume was coming down. MACD up, up. Of course tapering off, but again, that's like I say, normal for MACD jumping up and down a lot like that. But did show that it did come up during that tripping period, and DI actually shows a strong day of positive activity. In fact, afternoon where it jumped up again, it jumped up fairly high. And end of day, you can see it was closing down a little bit negative. But Bollinger Band, look, it came up, stabilized, and came up again, stabilized. A little bit of a drop here, but nothing drastic to indicate it was actually moving negative for the most part. Or strongly negative. Technically, it was moving down, so it's a negative movement, but we're not so drastic that you could say that, hey, that's a strong negative movement. That stock definitely looks like it was moving positive for the day activity. Next trade is AVXL. That's AVXL Life Sciences Corporation. Tripped at 3:26:32 p.m. at a price of 21.72. It was a buy. Closed the day at 21.36, up 2.89%. 326. Look here. Yeah, it came up and then dropped. So that stock technically is not moving positive very much. Well, end of the day, it's not moving positive. Came down. Yeah. But interesting. Look, OBV looks to be strong even in the day. So it looks like volume-wise, it was still moving fairly strongly. MACD not too bad. Well, it came up here during its tripping period and just dropped off a little bit, so not drastic. DI positive, and then DI actually is showing a fairly strongward moving negative movement, and Bollinger Band. If the end of the day wasn't as strongly negative as the indicators are showing to some extent, especially Bollinger Band. Bollinger Band is just showing basically a negative directional movement, which the stock at the end of the day was moving negative. It did look like it was tapering off a bit, but moving negative. I don't think I'm going to feel again. Bollinger Band also just showing that it really didn't move much out of its opening activity. Early morning it came in, it was in there, moved up a little bit, came down, but it's not really moving heavily positive. I'm not going to say this is impossible just because the positive nature is not heavily, it's not heavy itself, and closing activity or closing period, it's not showing really any kind of positive direction either. In fact, for the last half hour, it was showing a fairly strong negative movement to some extent. So to me, that's just not enough. So anyways, that's 4 out of 5 stocks, which is 80%. And that's not bad. I'll leave it at that.